everybody. As most of you, especially if you've ever ridden with me in a car, know that men and women in uniform usually scare the hell out of me. But I'm very fortunate to say, actually, usually, I don't think I've ever gotten a ticket from the sheriff. But with us today, we have two members of our sheriff's department, and it was a program I suggested to Charlie because I'm sure all of you have followed the animal rights situation we've had in Petaluma, right? They've been focused mainly on Petaluma. Started in May with an organization called DXE. So Farm Bureau has always had a great relationship with our sheriff's department. They actually have a rural crimes division, works very closely with all our farmers, and all of the sheriffs have been awesome supporting ag, but Rob Giordano kind of stepped it up. Mark Essick, our new sheriff, who's coming in actually January 1st started, right? Has been really interested in making sure that we, as farmers, get supported out there in the community. So we actually did a seminar the end of September for our farmers to deal with how to work with situations when there's animal activists that are coming onto your property, stealing your animals, or just coming on and doing a march. So it was awesome, and the best speaker at that presentation was actually Lieutenant Naugle. And now I know why, because I didn't know he went to Davis, but he did. Right? And Badley, where's Badley? Another Davis grad. So, and actually, Officer Naugle grew up here in Petaluma. So we have had an amazing amount of support from the Sheriff's Department. With us today also is Misty Harris. Misty is the Community Engagement Liaison for the Sheriff's Department. Has been there since March of 2017. And she actually came here from Truckee. I didn't know that, right? And was originally working in the planning department with my sister, and I know why she got out and moved over to the Sheriff's Department. I hear a lot about that planning department. But she's been awesome too, helping with a lot of the communications and everything like that. So I'm going to let the two of them come up and speak to you about all the great things that the Sheriff's Department's doing beyond just farming. I know that's part of the conversation today, but it's probably all kinds of great questions. And this is a very finable thing, but I have to leave because Sheriff Essick is speaking to my board at 2 o'clock. So kind of my sheriff day today. So I'm not going to be able to hear this wonderful presentation, but I know you're going to be amazed at how much work these guys have done for us in farming, and actually the great things that are planned for Sonoma County. So thank you guys.
Great. All right. So my name is Jim Naugle, and like Tawny said, I was actually born and raised here in Petaluma. So anytime the speaking events come in for down here, I'm always more than happy to come down and talk to you folks down here. And I always tell everybody, we do a lot of speaking stuff, and part of my job too is doing a lot of use of force review and presentations. And needless to say, sometimes those are difficult crowds. You guys are easy. I always tell Misty, she goes, hey, I got a Petaluma bank, you want to go? I'm like, well, yeah, those are my people. I was born and raised on a ranch. I married a dairyman's daughter. I've got 4 sons, and we all live here in town still. So I got a lot of close ties to the agricultural community and whatnot. And that's when these protests started coming up. It kind of hit near and dear to my own heart, And so just a little bit of background. I've been in law enforcement for about 21 years. Started down for the city of Nevada for 3 years, but then I've been up with Sonoma County for the bulk of that. I've done just about everything there is to do with the county. And right now, I'm the patrol captain, so I'm in charge of operations. So if you see a patrol deputy out on the street, basically that and everything that supports them is my job now. So the thing I'm going to talk to you about is the animal rights protest. And this has been animal rights protests in and of themselves are not unique to this area. We've seen them throughout the years at Petaluma Poultry, and then I don't know if all you guys remember, but the veal protests years ago. But these ones kind of hit us a little different. And I don't know how much you guys have followed in the news, but this group right now, this DXE, they're called Direct Action Everywhere, and they're a little bit more aggressive than what we've seen in the past. They're very organized and very, very well funded. So it's actually truly an international organization is what we found out. After we started arresting people, we were getting calls from as far away as Ireland and Scotland and, trying to flood our dispatch centers with calls. The best story I heard about that is one of our dispatchers came to me and said, hey, I might get in trouble. And I said, well, why? I guess somebody had called from Ireland, and she said, okay, I'll be right with you, and put them on hold for 25 minutes. So, anyway, so that's a side note. But yeah, so really we had 3 events now with this group, and we learned fairly quickly that this was a different group than we're used to dealing with. They weren't your typical protesters, that just wanted to protest, say their piece, and leave. These people were the first time that we've encountered were actually entering the property and stealing animals. Admittedly, we weren't exactly ready to handle that when it first happened. Unfortunately, it wasn't something we had dealt with before. We weren't really sure what the rules were or whatnot, so we did the best we could the first time. I think they arrested several people the first time, and then we had a couple more encounters, and the turning point for us was this 3rd encounter we had with them, where we didn't know they were coming. They didn't tell us. They just snuck in and stole some chickens from one of the ranches. And where it turned for us is, to their surprise, they had about 150 to 200 people there protesting. And the way they work, like I said, they're very organized. They actually have designated people that agree to be arrested. And so they have armbands on, they have suits on. They say these are the ones that are ready to be arrested. They go onto the property, they take the chickens, and they leave if they can. Well, fortunately, we had a plan this time, and like I said, I grew up in this area, so my tolerance for that was a little bit lower than I think it's been in the past. And so as my lieutenant's coming down to deal with the problem, he calls me and says, what do I do? And I said, I want them all. And he goes, you want them all? And I go, yeah, I don't care how many we need to arrest them. If they're on the property, they go. So our TAC team, so those are the guys dressed in black that do the riot control stuff, instead of dealing with the crowd behind them, they turned and they walled in the people that had trespassed onto the property. So we ended up arresting about, I think it was just under 60 people that day, from misdemeanor charges to actually felony conspiracy charges. And what we learned was they don't like that. So the general feedback from these people were when they started going in handcuffs, and we actually pulled in our big transportation bus. I don't know if you've seen it, but it's huge. We pulled that in, and their eyes got about this big, and they're like, well, what's that for? And we're like, that's your right. And so what we learned is they're typically used to dealing with areas that when you protest, you get arrested and you get cited out and released at the scene. So what we did is we didn't cite a single one out. We booked every single one of them. And so what we've since learned is that really got their attention. And so, moving forward, that's absolutely a strategy we're looking at is there is a zero tolerance. If you enter a property, if you steal an animal, you break anything, if there's any crime we can arrest you for, we will. If you stand on your side, so here's the tricky part, right? They also do have rights, right? Their First Amendment right to speech and all that. So we have to balance that. So we tell them, here's the line. As long as you stay on your side of the line, you can say and speak and have your piece or whatever you need to do. And that's the balancing act you have to make. And we know it was effective because shortly after that, we get a call from Stanislaus County and says, hey, do you guys know about this DXE group? Because they have now moved to Stanislaus and are protesting and doing the same things down there with Stanislaus County. So we were working really closely with Stanislaus on just kind of the tactics we used, and then they actually built on it and better. So it's really developing this network on monitoring this group of people. We've also got detectives that have infiltrated the group and are now full members of this DXE, so we're getting information and stuff. But they're different because they're actually intelligent people. They really believe, well, you laugh, but I didn't say smart, I said intelligent, right? Because, and they truly do believe in their cause, and that's why they're tricky, right? Because they honestly believe they're right, and we honestly believe they're wrong. And so there's no meeting. I mean, we've met with them, 20 or 30 times trying to work this out, saying you just can't go onto properties and steal things. And they see it as a rescue, whatever. So that's where they're tricky. At other groups, you can convince them that these guys really are. All their bail was posted by PETA, that came in and gave money to them. So, it's an interesting animal. I feel like the good news is we made good progress. We've got a good plan. One of the other things that's developed on it, we've always had it's actually too bad Tawny left because part of this gives her a lot of credit, and we've always had a good working relationship with Farm Bureau, but this has kind of pushed that to the next level. So one of the things we're working on with them now is actually doing site visits for ranchers for security. So we have our ag crimes unit, and they're divided. We have 6 deputies assigned to that, and so what it'll be is if ranches are worried or concerned and they want us to come out, we'll come out and do a site visit for security, proper signage, and things like that. So we're working with the Farm Bureau on that. So yeah, that's kind of the overview of where we're at with the animal protests. We haven't heard any news of them coming back yet. They still are pending trial. There's several of them up on felony charges still. I think a couple dozen on misdemeanor charges, and then a couple dozen more that got out on diversion stuff. And that's all working through the system.
Does a no trespassing sign have to be posted on the property in order for this to take place, the arrests?
It helps.
It does?
Yeah.
Because I have an HOA association, and we have a problem that we've had people, and they said because we didn't have any no trespassing signs, they couldn't come in and do anything. Police department or sheriff's department.
Yeah, that's the easy answer. I mean, because yes, if it's posted, there's no question. You know, and so what we're telling people is the more you guys do to make it easier for us, the more action we can take. Because if it's not posted, then it becomes arguable, right? Like, is it or isn't it? If it is posted, there's no argument. You know, and the general rule, I don't know what exactly the footage rule is, but if I'm looking at one sign and I move and I can see the next sign, that's generally what we're looking for. Don't give them an avenue to say, oh, I didn't see it. I didn't know. Because that's what they do, right? Like I said, they're intelligent people. They say, well, I didn't see a sign. I didn't know. I thought all ranches were open to the public. You know, they do those things. Well, yeah. So then it becomes down to what's really, who's got the better argument, you know. But if it's posted and things like that, then it's easy. And that's what this group of deputies is going to do. They're going to visit ranches. Because see, here's the tricky part. What if you have, you know, like a fruit stand on the property? So you're letting people on to buy fruit, but yet you don't want them into other areas stealing your stuff, right? So just how do you really delineate the difference between, yes, this is open to the public, this is not, you know? And so we're really starting to work with ranchers on figuring that stuff out.
Are the protesters local, or are they coming from other areas?
They're all out of the area. Well, all the ones we dealt with are out of the area. There are some local groups that kind of tagged on to them, but the bulk of them are from out of the area.
Like where?
Berkeley.
Berkeley?
Yeah. And they, you know, if you're interested, they got a Facebook page up. It's Direct Action Everywhere, DXE, and you can do, I mean, they're very, like I said, they don't think they're doing anything wrong, so they're right up front with it. They put it out. It's an interesting deal. Yes, sir.
All those ranchers also could, those are civil actions, trespass and wrongful conversion of your property, and they're all subject to small claims courts. And funny how those people don't like getting sued. I've seen some successful strategies where people have done it en masse, especially when it goes to the leaders, and you don't want to write too many $10,000 checks, and it takes a lot of fun out of it.
Yeah, definitely, and it's funny you bring up a lawsuit because Whole Foods just filed a lawsuit on this group, and they dropped a big one on them,
right,
for disrupting their business. And that's the thing is, one of the things we've realized is you're never going to convince them they're wrong or you're right. It's all about convincing them to just go somewhere else. Because, I mean, as sad as that is, but that really is it. But you just got to put pressure on them, like, hey, we are not going to tolerate it here. Go somewhere else. Right. You know, and so.
I'm sorry, I missed. What are they doing with the chickens? They're not free range, or what do they want?
They basically want to. They want to liberate all animals in agriculture.
Oh my God!
So they take them and put them where?
They take them and they raise them in their yards and in their ranches. And most of them are vegan. Yes. I'll leave all the inside jokes back because we had a lot of fun with this group, but no, you know, keep it professional for now.
You mentioned that these are well financed in your introductory remarks of this. Well, and it's more than just a highly organization. More than 50% are Berkeley.
It's actually international.
It's international.
Yes, we got calls from, like I said, from Ireland, Scotland.
Funding is coming from where?
From the membership. So they sign up to be members and they donate money, and then, like I said, so when it came to when we booked so many of them, for some of them to post bail, there was a lot of chatter on the phone calls that PETA was reimbursing them for their bail. So animal rights activism in general is a huge organization, right? And none of them really stand alone. So this is just one group that with very close ties to many bigger groups. And they kind of work off the same cause. Why this group picked Petaluma, I couldn't tell you. They have heart for chickens, I guess. I don't know.
Last question, are there professional organizers and demonstrators with the group volunteers?
Absolutely. Yes. And that's the thing is they are very, very professional. They know what lines they think are correct, right? And so, like I said, there's people that are there just to protest. There are people there that are there to push the lines. There are people there to be arrested. And the first time we dealt with this group, it was caught us off guard because they're like, okay, these people are ready to get arrested. And we're like, what are you talking about? Because everything was within the law at the time, And they're like, no, they're ready. And we're like, all right, I have no idea what you're talking about. All of a sudden they started walking towards our line and we're like, oh, and they were totally nice, polite. Oh, thank you, sir. I mean, it was really bizarre stuff. And so they got arrested, they got booked, and they had no issues. Where they had issues is we said, cool, we'll take these 40 that are arrested and we're going to grab the other 40 right over there. Because there were certain things we worked into it that really helped us build a different kind of case. And one of the things is all these chicken ranches are biosecure areas. And they knew that, so they actually brought biosecure suits to go in and rescue the chickens. Oh my God. So anybody that touched a biosecure suit, we booked for a conspiracy to commit a crime. So the people, the poor gal in nursing school that just brought the box got booked on a felony charge. There was a couple of attorneys that once the charges get filed, they're going to get reported to the bar. Those are the types of things that we've learned are making a difference. Not, because you book the leader, it's his full-time job. Because then he gets to go into custody, he gets to do a hunger strike for the cause and drum up. You laugh, but it's crazy. I mean, he basically went on a 2-week campaign in custody to drum up more business and more money. But that's his job. He gets paid by the company, by the organization, and so he didn't care. So what we had to do is you reach out to other people, and then that's when they didn't like it. So, and real quick on the questions, just so you guys know, I always tell people, that's why we're here. I mean, I have stuff we can talk about. Misty's going to talk about some cannabis stuff in a second, but the most important thing is that we get your questions answered, so please ask it, and if you don't like asking it in a public setting, I'll stick around until they're all answered. So don't sit there and say, I don't want to ask. Like I said, I did use support stuff for a long time. There's no harder questions you guys can ask me here than I fielded. And I'll just say I don't know and run if I don't like it. So, yes, sir.
What is the name of the organization?
It's Direct Action Everywhere. And it's DXE is the acronym. Yeah, you can find it. They're all over the place. So that's all I have for you on this part. Like I said, Misty's going to come up and talk to you about some of the marijuana stuff. And then, again, if there's questions from an operational perspective, I'll be happy to come back up and answer those. If there's things that come up that you want to ask me later, really about whatever. I mean, I know it's not very often you guys get us in a room or cornered and be able to ask questions. So even if it's off topic, I'll try to answer what I can. So thank you.
Heavy topic today. Now we're going to talk about marijuana. So the interesting thing about marijuana today is that it is a land use issue, not a law enforcement issue. And that's not to say there aren't law enforcement components to it, which I'll get into, but California state law has evolved over the last 20 plus years, starting with Prop 215 in 1996, where voters legalized the medicinal use of marijuana, to Prop 64, which legalize the recreational use of marijuana. So we're at a point in California today where it's legal pretty much across the board. You have to get your permits, your land use permits, to grow, to process, to sell, etc. But it's a legal product. The Board of Supervisors has an ordinance. They adopted that in 2016 for growing and processing, and they updated at the end of the last year to address some neighborhood concerns that had come up as a result of that. So from a regulatory perspective, everything comes out of Permit Sonoma, where Tawny's sister works. So that's where they handle the permits, building permits, grading permits, land use permits, and also code enforcement. Because on any of the illegal growth is a code enforcement issue. It's no longer, generally speaking, it's no longer a law enforcement issue. So our role in the county is obviously public safety. That's our job, is to keep you safe. So our role with marijuana is where the public safety issue comes up. So specifically, we work with Permit Sonoma. We support them in their regulatory efforts. We work with their staff on a fairly regular basis. We've done public education events for specifically for marijuana growers and cultivators to answer their security questions and really help them try to work with law enforcement, because it's a total culture change for them to pick up the phone and call us if something goes wrong. And we want them to call us. It's a new world, but we'd rather have them call us and be honest with what's going on so we can respond and keep our deputies safe and keep them safe. And whoever just hit them and ripped off their marijuana, their cash and whatnot, we want to catch them and prevent them from doing that to somebody else, right? So that's some of the work that we've been doing. And of course, whenever there is a crime, we show up. So we've had, unfortunately, there's a connection between marijuana and violent crime, and that's what we are experiencing here. So from January of 15 through the first quarter of 2018, the sheriff's office had 186 violent crimes that were marijuana related. So there's definitely a connection between this industry and violent crime, unfortunately. And one of the questions that we hear a lot is, well, it's legal. Why is it so dangerous? Why do we still have crime if it's legal? Because we thought that would go away. And the short answer is because there's a conflict in law. Right? State law says marijuana is legal. You get your permits, and you can grow it, you can process it, you can sell it, you can ingest it, smoke it, do your thing. Everywhere else, pretty much in the country, it's not. And so that conflict has really caused the price of marijuana to be substantially higher back east, up to 3 times higher. So in California, it's easy to grow, it's good quality product, and there's very little risk. Even if you don't get your permits, even if you're going to still be underground, you only are subject to the civil penalties through the Permit Sonoma process. It's not a criminal act, generally speaking. So it's low risk. And then back east, it's very difficult to grow, and there are serious penalties for possession and use and sales and everything. So that's what's driven the price up, or caused that disparity in price, which makes it a target. The second part of that is that it's a strictly cash business. So it's legal here in California, but it's not legal federally, which means the marijuana businesses can't bank. They can't use banks because they're federally insured. So you have a business that's done entirely in cash with operators who have a bunch of cash they can't put in the bank. So you end up with lots of cash and a product that has a lot of value to you if you're a criminal from back east who wants to sell it. And that's what we've been seeing, is the trend is people coming from back east. Like on Tuesday night, 3 of the people were from New York. So they come from back east, and then they come here to steal the marijuana and the cash, and then go back east and sell it and make more of a profit. So that's kind of the challenge. A lot of this is kind of doom and gloom, and I tend to have a sunnier disposition, so I'm going to end with some positive things that you can do. It's a difficult time, I think, right now for a lot of people. So my first recommendation to you is to get involved with the regulatory process, because that's where it all comes from. So you can go onto the county's website and get signed up for ordinance updates. If the board is going to be changing anything and you want to be involved, that's the best way to be aware of what's going on. If there's an application in your neighborhood or where you work, I would get involved with that and check out the application, talk to the planner, understand what's going on, and voice your opinion. No matter what your opinion is, it's a democratic process, and let the decision makers know how you feel. And then from the code enforcement side, if you see a grow or a business that you think is not legal, you've got to report it to code enforcement, because they're not going out there actively pursuing those things. They're relying on people to call in, and they can take your complaints confidentially. So I'm not speaking on behalf of Permit Sonoma, but as Tawny mentioned, I used to work at Permit Sonoma. I know this has been pretty well, and it's an effective way to get the code enforcement process started. Secondarily to that too, if you see something suspicious, if you see something going on and it doesn't quite look right, it's because it's not. And so please call us. So no matter what's going on, it's never a bother. We always show up. It's what we do. We've got magnets on the board or on your table here and on the back with the emergency and non-emergency numbers. So please don't ever hesitate to call us if you see something going on. And when you do call us, try to be the best witness you can be. Let us know, what the car looks like, how many people were there, what they look like, what they're wearing, what direction they went. All of those pieces of information help our deputies respond. It's concrete information our deputies can use when they respond to the call to help to help find them. So I'm going to go ahead and end with that and open it up to questions for either Captain Naugle or I. I know we have until about 1:30, and as he mentioned, we'll go ahead and stay as late as you guys want. We can talk offline afterwards. Yes, in the back.
You know, Petaluma, a great percentage of our student disciplines in our comprehensive high schools are marijuana related. And with the liberalization of it and now the legalization, we see this trickling down to the kids, which was very predictable. So what is the Sheriff's Department doing in particular, and maybe law enforcement in general doing to clamp down on underage marijuana sales? Because even though it's illegal for adults and everybody can make a big joke about it, and this isn't your hippie grandma from the Berkeley Commune's pot. This stuff is, as you guys know, anesthetizes these kids. So what do you see the active role of sheriffs and the different police municipalities really cracking down on pot getting down to these kids? Because it's rampant.
And I totally hear you. Like I said, I got 4 boys, 5th grade, freshman, senior, and 1 in college. So it scares me to death. And so those crimes that we can enforce, we're still obviously actively, aggressively enforcing those. And I think too, it's important to recognize, like, just because it's legal here doesn't mean that we're entirely King's X, we're out. The nice thing is we're finding ways to enforce other laws. So we cannot enforce federal law. That's kind of the tricky part, right? And if we just have our regular grows that would be legal, the feds have no interest in coming and taking those on. The interesting thing about these ones back east is we can actually build cases off transporting back east and stuff like that. I know that doesn't directly address your question, but I don't want to leave it like we're not enforcing anything. We really are. We've got at least 1 RICO case going with a group from back east. So we are doing what we can with what we've got. It's just whole weird rules that we got to go. But the kids are easier, yeah. So that's where the school resource officers are huge. I know Petaluma's got 2 great ones. I know them both personally, and I know they're right on top of it. So yeah, no, it's not getting ignored. It's just really finding where, you have to make sure, yeah, I know that's going to a kid, because there's very little interest in this state for prosecuting any marijuana, unfortunately. So, but that doesn't mean we're ignoring it. It just means we're finding more creative ways to try to address the same problem.
Hi, this may be off the subject, but let's say, I live in the country, my neighbors have been growing some marijuana. I don't want it. I mean, what kind of thought do I have to say? I know it's legal use, but there's all kinds of people I don't want in my neighborhood. Good. I mean, how effective is that?
I think your best course of action there is working through Permit Sonoma and talking to your planning commissioners and your board of supervisor Rabbit, and explaining what the issues are and why. Because it's a tough spot if they're assuming they're legally and permitted. It's really difficult. So that the best course of action is to participate before the permit is issued. So while it's in process, while it's being considered, that's the best time to talk to the planner, understand the application, put it in writing, talk to the supervisor, and get your voice heard as a neighbor, because they do listen to neighbors. They really do. And that's your best course of action I can recommend. It's tough, yeah. Yes?
How do you test for marijuana when somebody driving what's it going over? What's the procedure? Over the limit.
So here's the beautiful part about the way the law is written, is there's no marker, right? So for DUI, if you're 0.08 over, you're going to jail. So nobody's ever taken the time to determine what the impairment levels of marijuana are. So really it becomes the officer's discretion, right? So I see it, I'm saying you're impaired, I run you through some tests, and then the problem is it's just my word against whatever. So it's a very, very tough case to prosecute. Where we're seeing success in prosecuting marijuana under the influence of marijuana and driving is when they crash and things like that, because it kind of answers itself, right? But there is no, and that's one of the things that Denver's dealing with too, is there's no limit, if you will, to what it is. It's just really the officer's evaluation. And so what we're doing now is officers that are going to investigate that, we have to send them to highly specialized schools so that they can say, now I can evaluate you and your own limit. Yes, in fact.
You mentioned having permits for grows. Is there some sort of registry where you can check if someone does have a permit?
Yeah. So it's all public information through Permit Sonoma. So you can go onto their website, the Permit Sonoma website, and you can check by address. You can see what kind of permits are issued or in process for that address.
And then secondly, is it limiting like proximity to public schools where these permits are being allowed?
Yeah, I don't know the ordinance in and out like I used to, but there are distances that are required between what's called sensitive uses, like parks and schools and things like that. The ordinance is online too, so you can read what those are.
Okay.
Yeah, yes.
How many actual permits have been issued, let's say, the last 12 months, and how many are pending, do you know?
I don't have those numbers, I'm sorry, it all comes out of Permit Sonoma. Do you have an
A
idea?
lot of people that
I
are.
know, I don't know the exact numbers, I know it's not very many and a whole bunch. So part of the problem is, to get technical. So part of the problem they're having with people getting permits is they don't want to comply with the safety plan aspect of it, or not that they don't want to, you have to have a very intense safety and security plan for your operation, and that seems to be holding a lot of these up. So yeah, I don't even want to guess at a number, but I know the number is not high. I know we had planned on a lot more.
Right, yeah, in the back.
So because these farmers have to register their grows permits and all those things, do you find that that's actually putting them at risk for the robberies, where I can go to a registry as any Joe Public, look where these grows are, and then go scout those places out and rob these farmers and put them in danger?
So my general experience so far, and that could happen, obviously, but those aren't the ones they're hitting. I mean, the black market ones are the ones they're hitting because that's where the money's at. You know, so that has not been our experience yet. But granted, we don't have a lot of them. But I don't know offhand of one of our permitted grows that have been hit.
I was a high school drug and alcohol counselor in Palm Springs. The routine was the girls in the pregnant minor program would come tell me that their boyfriends were using, whether it was whatever it was. So I called the boyfriend in and said, we have to have a talk. And I said, what do I smell? I put them immediately into group. I took them out of their classes. I put them into group. And in group, they were confronted. And then it started with the process with my principal. But the smell of alcohol and the smell of pot are very different. And because of that, my job was to report. So I reported to my boss, and a lot of things happened, and we got rid of a lot of kids that were using, or we got a lot of kids to start cleaning up for AA meetings or NA meetings, whatever they were. But I think a lot of it starts, like what Mike was talking about, it starts in the high school and in junior highs, that the counselors can call those kids into their office and smell it. It breathes. They can't, but the best narcs are the regular minors. And that's one of the ways to do it.
Yeah, that's so Petaluma just recently got their 2 school resource officers back, and that's really exciting because I agree. It's that point-on-point contact for sure.
Well, Captain Shan, that was great. I have something for each of you. Here's some speakers for the speakers, some breakthrough speakers, which are Rotary Club names. So let's everyone give them a big round of applause. Great presentation. Thank you very much. And they'll be here for answering questions. And in wrapping it up, remember, if you want to go to the SCARF meeting, get $25 off the normal $50 charge. See Gail and tell her what kind of meal you want. That is at the end of this month. This Saturday, if you want to work an hour or so, planting trees down at the Serenity Garden, Petaluma People Services Center, please be there. Go out and sell your raffle tickets. And other than that, I hope you have a great day. Thanks for coming to Rotary. Have a good one.